Hello and welcome to Anatomy of Marriage. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
What's up, my friends? My name is Seth Studley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist. Today we're talking about it ain't your spouse's job to make you happy.
That's right. Let's go. Hey, you guys, we are back and we are talking about it is not your spouse's job to make you happy. Hashtag differentiation. This is the thing that we talk about a lot with our coaching clients. It's a very hard concept to get people to understand because our culture has it twisted and every single movie is like, you complete me.
Right.
And then everybody lives happily, miserably after.
And this ran a big old snowplow through our marriage for a long time. And so I looked up the definition of differentiation, and it was zero helpful. It said the act of differentiation. I'm like, okay, that's great. So I looked up differentiate, and this is a term that I first learned in graduate school where we're talking about family of origin and breaking away from who you are in your family and all this stuff, right? And to differentiate means to make or become different in the process of growth or development. And I love that. I've never actually looked it up, but I knew it was the act of becoming different from being here to there. We're not the same. We're different people. There's similarities that we have, but this is the act to make or become different in the process of growth or development, which I got excited about that because we always talk about growth mindset and getting out of, any kind of poverty mentality or scarcity mentality. And this is becoming different with the idea of growing, which is great.
Yeah, I like that definition. Excuse me. My gosh. One thing I think is really wonderful about differentiation, especially per the description you just brought up, is that often when we start out our relationships, it's that whole like, we're just so in love, we complete each other's sentences, we have the same thoughts, we blah, blah, blah. And in the beginning, we're very
I think we skipped over that part in our marriage.
We're very sort of melded together when we're first in relationships. We
phenylethylamine.
And we often will, what's the word? Like we do what the other person wants because we're like, oh, it's okay. I mean, I'm so in love. And we just sort of meld and do what they want. And so we are very much not differentiated, right? Think of people who are just dating. What are they? Annoying because they have no ideas of their own. They're just like talk about their partner endlessly, and you're like, yeah, I got it. They love spinach, great, and you don't care because you know that it's like kind of not real. But the great part about this is that, and which I wish everybody knew, and I wish that we had known, is that as you mature, as you go through life together, have experiences, have children or whatever, buy a house together, you should always be growing in that process. And as you're growing, you're becoming sort of more solid in yourself. You're differentiating, but that does not mean you're like, I hate you, F you, flip you a bird. Because that's what typically happens is when people start differentiating, it feels scary. They go, oh, well, I don't even care what he thinks now. Well,
you're not
clearly I must not be in love. Yeah.
Or there's all kinds of narratives that, so especially when you come from a small town or something, why don't you move to Seattle? And you're like, oh, this and stuff like that.
That sounds like a personal story.
Well, yeah, they have a bunch of them. And you're going to get pushback from maybe even your spouse there. But hopefully, as in our case, we had a growth mindset like at the same time.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? And I don't think, and that all got birthed of S hitting the fan big time. And we just had to wake the hell up or we're just...
We would be divorced.
We'd be toast, right? And I'm seeing this a lot lately, just I think hearing stories and difference and seeing more clients and stuff like that. And I think we are all getting it wrong to some degree because just the idea of your spouse is not there to make you happy and to fix your problems or to fill some giant hole that you have that you haven't worked on yet. And all that stuff is not apparent when we're first dating, when we're first in love and married. Of course, I talked about phenylethylamine. That's like the love chemical that just kind of washes our brain and goes, oh, this is great. And biologically, it's supposed to do that so we can mate and have kids and stuff like that. But in this context, we're blind to that. And then we wake up 2, 3, 4, 5, 8 years later and go, I'm not happy. It's your fault.
Right.
It's this. And every fight or every little flaw that you're partner has, which is AKA being human, you're going to blame them for it. And I see that all the time. And I'm like, no, that's not, that's not how it is. And I say this often, your spouse, can you be happy? Whatever, can you be happy, content, centered, peaceful, calm, no matter what your spouse does or doesn't do, right?
Yes.
That is being differentiated.
Yes.
That is coming from, say, I'll put it in a family of origin context. That is coming from like a bonkers family, a drug and alcohol, all kinds of stuff, yelling, fighting, all this. This is how you communicate. What? You're going to college? Nobody goes to college. All this stuff. Becoming differentiated is saying, I am doing all these things and I'm okay with it. I still love you. I still see you. And we're going to have healthy boundaries around that. If you keep on saying that stuff, I probably will come around less, but my door is open if you decide to speak to me on these terms. And I'm not saying, oh, it's my terms, my way, the highway. I'm saying with kind, loving, considerate, respectful boundaries. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, let me paint another picture of differentiation and why it matters. And this is something we see often, or I see often with the wives and women that I work with, is that a lot of it is this, well, I can't be happy because he XYZ. He calls me this, or he says this, or he goes with his friends here, or he does this thing on weekends, or he said this thing 25 years ago. There's a list of reasons why we cannot be happy in a relationship with this person. And it's all based on that person, right? And so something that I have to work with, which feels so almost like antithetical, if that's even the right word, I don't even know. It feels like the opposite of what coaching is about or therapy is about. But when you work on being differentiated and being happy, no matter what's going on, like stuff can be falling apart. You're like, I'm centered. It's fine. I don't need to yell at you. I don't need you to like do right for me to be happy. I can be happy regardless. When you find that centered place of differentiation, it allows your spouse, you're not like this leech, like he has to do this and then I'll be happy. He has to talk like that and then I'll be happy. It allows you to like undo your suckers, right? Like octopus unhinge, and you can, then they can become differentiated and then you can work on your marriage. Otherwise, you can't. It's like, this is a really funny analogy. I don't know why this is what's coming to my brain. Imagine an octopus with all 8 of its arms, strangling their spouse, going, just be different. If you would just this, it would make me happy. You got to take one of the arms is like, unmet expectations. And then the other one is like family of origin of your spouse. Yeah. And then the other arm is parenting. Like it's 8 arms.
And then some of the arms are have a lot of emotionality wrapped up because there is hurt in there. There are actual terrible, stupid things that a spouse has done. And people are probably listening going,
you don't know my story.
You don't know my story. How can I let go of that stuff? Right. So sorry to cut you off.
No, I mean, but I just think that's like a really good example that people think, oh, we'll get into coaching or therapy or marriage therapy or whatever, and we'll work on our marriage. But it's like all along, there's an octopus spouse strangling one partner saying, if you would just do this, I'd be happy. Right. And you can never work on your marriage if that's the state that you're in. One, all your hands are tied. They're all busy.
All your octo arms?
Your octo arms are tied. But when we can start to get to the place of differentiation, and we'll talk about what differentiation looks like, how it feels, what it isn't and what it is.
Right. So I want to say something.
I'm not done. When we get to that space as individuals, that's when we can actually realistically and sort of level-headedly look at this state of our marriage and our behaviors and their behaviors and have a totally different assessment. It's like sitting in the like in an operating room when you're up in the thing, like watching a surgery, a theater, that's what it's called. And you're watching it from the perspective up here versus being the person on the surgery table, right?
You're speaking like you actually have seen that.
I have, like a million times.
Like what?
My best friend is a doctor and she's helped in surgeries. I know everything about. I'm basically famous.
Pretty cool.
It's my favorite thing to say.
I know it is. Okay, so what? I know that this is what I would ask. I try my best to put myself in the position of all this stuff that we're saying. We're like, Seth, what are you even saying? This is impossible. You don't know my story. I always try to put myself back 6, 8, 10, 12 years ago of like, okay, what would I be thinking, or what reason would I come up with to say that sounds crazy? You're full of crap. So okay, it's not just like you do differentiation and like click, oh, whatever she does, I'm happy no matter what, right? This is a process that you have to start. You, individual, you with the shoulders, you have to start somewhere. So what books am I reading? What podcast am I listening to? What am I actually doing to get to this point? And it's just like going to the gym. Hey, have a great body or whatever, be healthy. Give it at least 3 months. You can't just, fall off the couch and go, all right, waking up at 5, going to the gym. You're going to burn out. It's not going to work, and it's going to stress your body like crazy. This process doesn't work that way either. We were doing the things. First, we had the head knowledge of differentiation and all the stuff I learned in grad school, blah, blah, blah. And then we began to listen to podcasts and go, oh, wait a minute. Okay, I can take that piece. Or I don't understand that just yet. So if we say something that you don't understand, like, you're crazy. I mean, not that you're crazy. It's like you're saying that we're crazy. You don't know my spouse. You don't know my situation. You don't know this. You're right. We don't, right? And that doesn't mean that you can't change things around and find happiness. Because think about this. If my happiness, if I'm always like, well, if she would change, I would be happy. If she would XYZ, I would be happy. Who has the power in that?
Right.
Who has the power?
Right. Me.
Right?
Yep. So
what are you giving up? You're giving up your power, and you don't have to come in there guns blazing, blowing stuff up.
Right.
Well, I'm going to do this, all this stuff, because that's going to be like drinking from a fire hose for your spouse. You can calmly say, okay, let me think about this. Let me go out and get the knowledge first. Again, podcasts, books, go to therapy, get coaching, all these things. You have to do the work yourself. You have to do the work yourself.
Right. And I guess I go back to this idea that when people start to differentiate, I will say especially Christians. I think this is really a big deal because and don't get me wrong here, just don't. I think in the evangelical Christian space, we are not taught to be sort of our own person. We're taught to follow rules, to follow the word of God or whatever that looks like. So when we start having our own feelings that are separate from our spouses, we start to fall apart. People get divorced because they're like, he likes bacon and I don't. I think I'm a vegan. Oh my gosh. Like they just they can't even imagine that two different people could live together with harmony and like honor and love. And that's really what differentiation is about. And again, I go back to this idea of like the octopus hands around the next throat, the partner's throat, that if you don't let go and you don't have your whole world wrapped around in your partner's actions or behaviors or thoughts or words or whatever, you can't actually know what you need and want. That is so imbalanced. And like you said, it steals your power if everything is going to that person. And that's one of the hardest things to do in a marriage that is struggling, because everybody in a marriage that is struggling thinks it's their spouse's fault.
Right.
They'll take like 5% of the blame or ownership or whatever, but 95% is, well, it's him, right? But if you could differentiate yourself, you could basically see, nah, it's about 50-50. Like it's that we're different, that we're having all these struggles, but that doesn't mean that fixing that difference is actually going to make that struggle go away.
Right.
That makes sense? And oftentimes if you look at the outcome if you've just followed the logic of most couples, like, well, yeah, it's his fault that I'm so unhappy. So you go, okay, Seth, change everything, would you? And so then Seth changes everything. How's Seth feeling?
I don't know.
Absolutely miserable.
Oh, right.
You feel stupid. You feel dumb.
Right. We see that a lot of times because either the husband or the wife will say, I'm trying to do all this stuff, but he is still not happy.
Right.
I'm making these changes, but she is still not happy, and they're losing their mind over here. Like that happened to me forever. I'm like, I'm doing these things that you are saying are going to make you happy, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, got lists, I got timers, I got all kinds of things going on, and you're still not happy, right? So we understand and get it. I mean, the reason we can speak to this with hopefully clarity, I don't know, some degree of clarity and even certainty, because we have experience. We have felt a lot of the things that we get emails about, that our coaching clients talk about, that I see in therapy all the time. We have been there. And it's not like we have the answer. We're saying, hey, this has helped us. One of the most amazing things in our entire marriage was when I was able to get my shit together. Oh, guess what? I became happier.
Yes.
And you did too.
Yeah. And but here's what it feels like at first. You what?
How dare you?
You don't care that I'm home with the kids on a Saturday? What?
No, and
you're gonna go ski with your friend and have like a life-giving moment?
Yeah, we just got season passes, so I am going to.
But it is really weird because at first, if we're used to being octopus queen over here and like strangulating our partner, it feels like this weird. It feels very opposite of what.
It feels counterintuitive because maybe we saw that from our family of origin or the church or whatever community we've come to or come from. And it feels weird. It feels uncomfortable. And we also say this, anything that feels uncomfortable in that way is usually a good sign to some degree, a good sign of growth, right? All the growth happens in discomfort.
Right.
Was it easy for us to make that change? Is it easy now to some degree?
I mean, it takes work and intention. It's easy because we know our intention and our goal.
And it takes practice.
Right. Had we not known an intention or a goal or followed lots of wise teachers, we would have just been like a hot mess. But let's talk about what differentiation really looks like in a healthy marriage. Like we talked about how it doesn't look, right? Like everything, all my feelings attached to your behaviors. Even if we've been married for 37 years, like, well, I mean, he ignores me all day. He this or that. Like, if your whole world is revolving around what your spouse does or doesn't do and how it makes you happy or not, there's a lack of differentiation there. But
this is good. I'm going to go through some actual examples from emails that we've gotten or just like scenarios, right? So let's just say, okay, we're rolling along and I really just spent money and not cared what you thought about it.
Okay, I'm not sure.
No. You bought another pair of shoes. Okay, Seth, that's $200. What are you doing? We didn't talk about it. Yeah, sorry. But then I go do it again, right? How can you be differentiated in that when a spouse is doing something that is disrespectful or we're not on the same page? Like what's the example?
That's an example. A perfect example. Because you do that. And there have been times in the past, which is really weird, is that even my own family and like friends are like, I can't believe Seth did that. Like, he spent that much money on shoes again. Like they want me to not be differentiated. And I've decided to say, again, this is not a huge, egregious, awful thing, but it's like a trust breaker in a little bit. Cause like you didn't ask me. We thought we had a deal about these things, but that doesn't mean it has to steal my peace. Please hear the words that are coming out of my mouth. Like it doesn't have to steal my joy that he even messed up in that way, right? Again, he apologized for it. And I said, I don't think you need the 7,000th pair of Danner boots, you ding dong, but whatever. But it's important to know that the wrong choice can be made. An apology can be said. He can even return the boots. And I never have to get mad about it. Not even one time.
What about things like that where the wife is perpetually doing something or the husband is perpetually doing something?
That was like, you just said the same. So anyone's doing perpetually anything?
So like shoes, right? Okay, like, I got another pair of boots that we didn't exactly talk about. But that doesn't happen. I like how
he's trying to like sweep that under the rug, like a 200 pair.
They were basically free.
They were not
Actually,
free.
They sponsored the show, and I got them for free.
They did not sponsor the show, and he did not get them for free. You're the worst. A good example, I think, would be, I mean, what are you trying to get at? Like, well, I feel like you're asking a question, but you're trying to not ask it.
No, I'm not trying to not ask it. I really find it interesting to think of possible scenarios that our listeners might have as well in that way. So another one, like what would a husband be doing?
Well, maybe in parenting or something. Like, again, differentiation is not like, I just do my own, I do me, you do you, right? That's how people perceive differentiation is like, well, never mind. You don't bother me.
I'm going to this restaurant to eat. You go to that one.
Yes,
who cares?
And that is not what we mean. But so sometimes like people will have differences in parenting, like they're parenting little kids and maybe the husband is mad because the wife does the thing he doesn't like. And so he's always upset because why does she do this thing all the time? And it's like, yeah, you can acknowledge the thing that you don't like, work towards a goal of having it be healthy. But the fact that it turns you into a puddle of anger is a sign that you're not differentiated.
It is not a blatant acceptance of bad behavior.
Yes.
It is creating firm boundaries, creating clear expectations and what is okay and isn't okay.
Yeah.
And then being okay whatever they choose.
Mm-hmm.
You understand what I'm saying? So, Seth, any purchases over $50, especially if it's related to shoes or whatever, this is our thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, went out and spent $250. You're like, I am mad at that, right? I'm not going to let it affect how I show up with the kids or how we do the podcast or whatever. But understand that I'm not okay with that.
Right.
I'm upset about that and I'm not okay with it. Right. So you're stating your clear boundaries. You're not accepting bad behavior.
Right.
And you're saying what you want in that. So being differentiated also gives you some, you can have an increase in self-confidence and a really kind of laser beam focus on what you actually want and don't want. And this goes to sex, to like how you spend money, how you parent, where you vacation, what kind of job, how you run the house, all kinds of stuff, because it refocuses on you and saying, it's questioning actually, hey, maybe you're so mad and you're trying to blame your spouse because you don't know what you actually want.
Right. And that's a big part of it, is that differentiation is hard because it requires a lot of self-awareness. It requires separating like the fact that Seth is not my clone and he is not on this earth to make me happy. Like that's very hard for most people to get. Like, well, you said you would love me and protect me, like hashtag do everything I want, and you don't.
Right.
What? So it takes a lot of self-awareness. It takes like you got to eat some humble pie, and so that's what makes it tricky. Is people either never do it and their happiness is completely dependent upon what their spouse does or doesn't do, what they say or don't say, or they go completely the opposite way where, okay, I'm differentiated. You do what I don't even care. I'm going to bed whenever I want. I have another room, so whatever.
Yeah. So like, what's the balance? You are married, so you have to be considerate and kind and loving and empathetic and sympathetic to the other person's needs because you're married, right? You're not just some weirdo with antisocial personality disorder and like, I don't know. I said I wanted
Don't
this.
bring my sister into this.
Which one?
Both. And my mom. Just kidding.
Right. So this is I love the concept of differentiation. I really have seen it play out in our lives. And as we've matured and really had an other focus other than you don't just exist to make me happy.
Right. And let me say it just like this. So in a differentiated relationship, you love each other because you choose to. In a non-differentiated relationship, you are forcing your spouse to love you because they said they would, right? Like you see what I'm saying? Like you and I can have massive differences of opinion, and we do, like especially with travel. Like I would not go all the way to Dubai for one day. Like I'm not going to do that. Yes, it's a great place, but I would never fly that long to go someone for like 2 days, right? I just wouldn't do that. And we have hugely different, like not the same at all thoughts about certain things, but that doesn't mean that we can't get along beautifully for another 50 years. Like why would that be the case? That's stupid if we think that that's the case. So differentiation requires a lot of you, but the reward and the payoff is massive. And it's really helpful also for your kids. Once you're differentiated as a parent, their temper tantrum doesn't send you to like Mars in a split second. Differentiation helps in a lot of different areas. So
really it's about growth. It's about the maturation process. And it was funny. It's like, okay, little kids can cry and fuss and want to get their way. And like, so say if Hattie wanted to play dolls or something like that. And I was like, no, I can't. I said you can't. But she was like, but Daddy, you said, or like, I want to play. And I was like, okay, fine, we'll play. She would be instantly happy because like, oh, they're just playing, right? And a kid is of course in the moment, but that is, it's a child. It's very not mature. It's like I'm manipulating, screaming and fighting to manipulate this person to do what I want them to do, right? Do you want to be in a marriage like that? Do you actually, wife or husband, say, wait a minute, you're pouting around and like a, sorry ass all over the place to like talk your wife into having sex, pity sex, gross,
and it's
you know what I'm saying, or vice versa, like the wife is saying don't go out with your friends, don't do this, don't do that. Oh, so okay, I'm gonna come home and just do nothing,
Sit here
and then like
nagged.
pretend that I like enjoy it, you want like pity time with me, that's gross.
A lack of differentiation is deeply unattractive. It's so unattractive. Like I mean, imagine if there was any other thing in nature that did that. The trees are like, grass, you need to love me or else they won't grow.
Right,
like, no, that isn't how things
okay,
thrive.
I'll water you. Fine, whatever. Just shut up.
Right. So we hope that this sort of introduction to differentiation in this way has been helpful. It is something that we see over and over again with clients. And speaking of clients, if you want to be a client, hit us up at coaching@anatomyofmarriage.com and learn more about that. But differentiation is really important.
Yeah, let's talk about that for a minute. So as I said, I see the time. As I said earlier, this is a process, and we all thought that we could do it alone until we wake up 10 years later and go, "Oh crap, no, we can't.
Done nothing.
We haven't done anything. We're in the same. We're in the same spot, right?" So coaching is an intense 90-day process where you have me and Melanie in your back pocket, literally, or just on the phone, which is basically in your back pocket, to support you, to be like, what?
We go, come on.
No, what are you doing here? Let's look at the last 5 years. What have you done over and over and over, trying to get a different result, but we keep on getting the same thing, right? That's why you need coaching. So email us at coaching@anatomyofmarriage.com or go to the website, anatomyofmarriage.com, click on the little coaching tab up in the right-hand corner, just saw it today, and schedule a consult call. It works. It's a commitment. If you want to take the island, you got to burn the boats. And if you find yourself waking up 5 years later to your spouse thinking, "Oh, you're not making me happy," that is bullcrap. You can get through it. We've helped a lot of couples through it, and we got through it ourselves, right? Don't think you can go at it alone. Please email coaching@anatomyofmarriage.com. Click on the coaching button on anatomyofmarriage.com as well.
Yes. And so again, we hope this dive into differentiation has been helpful. If you have any questions, send them in and we will be happy to answer them. And we will see y'all later.
All right, guys. See ya.
Bye.